What's up guys, it's Andrew at Motorcycles Off-Road. In today's video, we're going to talk about the top dual sports that you may want to purchase new this year. Now to fall into this category of a dual sport, it must meet three criteria. Number one, it's an actual dual sport street legal motorcycle, not a dirt bike. Number two, it's a motorcycle that you'd be willing to ride all week long and still ride it on the weekends in the trails, so that counts as a commute and trail riding. And number three, it doesn't fall into the too heavy category where we're getting into the adventure ADV bikes. That's for another video. This one's mostly about dual sports. Now I'm going to go into detail about these particular motorcycles and why you would want to buy one over the other, its bonuses, its pros, its cons, etc. But I will also put timestamps in the video in case there's a particular one you want to hear about first. But I encourage you to watch the whole video as it helps my analytics and helps a small channel like mine grow. So that being said, hit the like button, and if you enjoy the content here, please subscribe, and also, if you like to see more videos from Motorcycles Off-Road, check out our Patreon, where we do 2 extra videos a week, along with pictures, drones, modifications to the rally, all kinds of extra stuff there, and a lot of it is free, and you can go to the free tab and check it out. But without further ado, let's get into the top dual sports. So my top 2 dual sports on the market today would be the Honda CRF300L and the KLX300. Why? Well, I've done a few videos comparing these two bikes, so if you want to get a more in-depth review, you can go there for comparisons. But honestly, you can't go wrong with either of these motorcycles. Both are pretty great. Let's start with the Honda first. The pros of the Honda are fuel injection, option for ABS, long service intervals, great fuel consumption, amazing display for the price, and well, just generally the price in general. Out of all the motorcycles on the market, this may be the most approachable when it comes to features for the price. You get so much for the MSRP. This motorcycle out of the box is ready for your weekly commute, and with the 35-inch seat height, many newer riders find this bike to be very manageable, as it is not intimidating to stop at stoplights or mount. The cons? Well, we'd have to mention the suspension. When it comes to rough riding off-road, it's a bit lacking, and some people will complain about the lack of power on the highway. Keep in mind this bike will easily go 80 miles per hour, but don't expect to aggressively overtake anyone. Of course, there is fixes for these shortcomings, and I've covered these in other videos, but out of full transparency, these should be noted. Okay, at the exact same approachable seat height, we're looking at the KLX300. I'm a huge fan of this bike. As I said in the 300L section, I have done comparisons of both of these motorcycles side by side, but this is easily my number 2 of the year. The pros of this dual sport are fuel injection, good service intervals, and pretty good adjustable suspension stock. This dual sport has slightly more horsepower than the previously mentioned Honda, but it also has slightly less torque. I would have to say the cons are no ABS option, so there's a lot of places that do not have access to this bike. A little bit older, dated aesthetics, lack of modern display, and not priced aggressively as the Honda. I love the Kawasaki company, in fact I have one in my garage right now, but it feels a bit of a kick in the balls that it's $750 more than the MSRP of the Honda just to get the cool color scheme with the black rims. Now next I want to mention one that's probably not on a lot of people's list, but it's by far the best starting dual sport you can get. Hands down, the best in my opinion. This bike will be great to learn to ride, and that is the XT250, and one of its variations. Most are pretty close to the similar model that we have offered today, and they're great to learn on and resell. And in fact, if you did buy one of these bikes used, like the XT225 that I had, you would pretty much be able to sell it for more or the exact price that you bought it for. The newest generation comes with fuel injection, which is great, gives you some adaptation to different elevations, as well as you don't have to warm it up in a cold start. The bike just starts great every time. But you're probably asking, why would I think it's the best learner dual sport out there? Well, let me enlighten you. The seat height on this dual sport is super low. It's kind of bad for a taller rider, but it's very approachable for anyone who's shorter or anyone beginning, because you can always catch yourself and put your feet on the ground. And since it's a dual sport seat, it's nice and narrow, so it's easy to drop a leg. And as you know, motorcycles are basically weightless when they're standing perfectly straight up, so a lower seat height means that by the time you do drop the leg to catch yourself, as a new rider, there's less weight to bear to keep the bike standing upright. Whereas a taller seat, you're dealing with more of the weight by the time you can finally reach the ground. The next Next thing is, this bike's kind of lacking in power, but that's a good thing for a new rider. That means you won't get yourself in trouble. It means you won't hit a bump and accidentally throttle it and throw you into a tree, breaking a rib or a collarbone. And in fact, you don't have to ride fast. To be honest, riding a slow bike fast, to me, seems a lot more fun than riding a super fast bike, but then having to keep it in control most of the time 10% of its power. Not saying this motorcycle gives you the sweet spot, but for a learner, it's the best. And I also like the big goofy front headlight. Disc brakes, the bike's pretty modernized, but the headlight also screams retro, which is kind of cool. This motorcycle also has the added benefit of being the lowest MSRP motorcycle on this list, and as I said, you could buy them used, unlike the 300L and the Kawasaki, which hold their value pretty well used since they've just started coming out in the 2021 market. This motorcycle dates back far. Alright, so let's talk about Suzuki's offering. Suzuki is still offering the DRZ400S, and in some countries it could be the E, I guess, but most countries get the S. Now, this bike I would recommend for you if you were a very tall rider. I would say 6'2" or higher, because you might feel a little cramped on the other motorcycles without making modifications like bar risers, higher sweep on your bars, etc. The pros to the DRZ is, well, it's dead reliable. It's been in production for many years. You can easily find parts for it, and out of the box for off-road, it has a good reasonable amount of power, more so than the other bikes mentioned. The cons of the DRZ, well, it can feel a little top heavy, its carburetor is a bit dated, there's of course no ABS option, and a lot of riders may find it a bit intimidating by the height of the motorcycle if they are just started riding. And of course we can't forget the 5-speed transmission. Alright, let's talk about a couple honorable mentions. On the Kawasaki side, if you're shorter, you also have the KLX300S. Now, the KLX300 is in the exact same configuration as the 300, but the S model has a slightly lower seat height. Of course, you have less ground clearance, but for a lot of beginner riders, this is a great option. It also has ABS available and is priced very aggressively at a low MSRP of $47.99 in the US. So I'd have to say this is a very viable option for a lot of people. Next, if you want to go a little more adventure route, I would say you could check out the DR650. Now, the DR650 is old, tried and true, just like the DRZ400. It actually has a lower seat height than the DRZ400. Though it's a bit heavier, I would not recommend it for a new rider, unless, of course, your goal is mostly open roads, adventure, maybe open fields. This bike would excel in those situations. Though, just like the DRZ400, it is still limited by a 5-speed transmission. Now, I've always had a special category in my head for the DR650 and the KTM 690 Adventure. And the reason being is I had the early version of the KTM 690, which was the 640, the LC4, and that was a great bike. And they're still reasonable weight-wise. So most adventure bikes are very heavy, like my Tenere 700 weighs around 450 to 500 pounds, where the KTM 690 and the DR650 sit at the mid 300 pound range, but yet they could be used either for adventure bikes or dual sports. A slightly heavy dual sport, a slightly light adventure bike, but all in all, they're both pretty fantastic motorcycles. The only problem is, of course, you're going to pay a huge premium for the KTM, and I've heard a couple preventative maintenance things you might want to do if you take this thing far, far out in the woods, just for peace of mind. But overall, pretty fantastic motorcycle. Now, there is one more motorcycle that is kind of an adventure motorcycle, but it can be considered a dual sport in my head, and that is the Royal Enfield Himalayan, because that one kind of blurs the line. I mean, it is a 400cc motorcycle, but it has a heavy 400-pound weight, but at the same time, it's got a very approachable seat height, and it has plenty of low-end torque, but yet low horsepower. It's a very strange motorcycle. The styling is definitely unique, and its reliability has been tested and shown to be truly good. So, personally, I can't talk much about this motorcycle because it's one that I've never ridden, but I am in the process of getting one to have a review out for you guys midsummer, or maybe early spring. So, if you're interested to learn more about that bike from my perspective, then be sure to subscribe, turn the notifications on, because that one I promise will be coming because I'm very intrigued to try this motorcycle and see what all the hype's about. I can say one thing, with an MSRP of under $5,000, it probably makes this motorcycle a very good choice for a lot of beginners who want to do adventure riding, all the way up to people that just want to cruise around. So more to come on that motorcycle. Now, that has been your top dual sport motorcycles of 2023 in my opinion. As you noticed, I did not apply any KTMs, gases, etc. And the reason for that is These motorcycles are fantastic, but beyond the KTM 690, I don't believe a lot of these plated dirt bikes as dual sports are great as dual sports. And as I said, the criteria is a motorcycle that you're willing to ride to work all week long and then also hit the trails on the weekend. I just don't feel like the low service intervals and the high maintenance of these high performance machines fits the bill of a plated dual sport. That's just my opinion. They're fantastic bikes. I rode my buddy's KTM EXEF. Fast, awesome, but at the same time, it's not exactly what I'm looking for a list like this. Overall, I hope you enjoyed. I want to thank my patrons. Please click in the first comment below if you want to check out the Patreon, or if you want to buy one of our new t-shirts for the rally, etc. Hit the like button if you want to help push this video into the algorithm. And my name is Andrew, and this is Motorcycles Off-Road. Thanks for watching, guys.
Slippery ass rock.